Doug, do we have public speakers today?
We do. We have two public speakers.
Thank you.
The first of whom is Judy Wolf, followed by Matt Shotkin. Judy Wolf, 3 minutes per speaker, please. Please step up to the podium.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Walter and members of the MTA Board. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Judy Wolf, and I represent the Track Worker Family Fund. We are based in Rochester, New York, and were formally established in 2008. The Track Worker Family Fund is a consortium of parties interested in railway safety. This includes families and friends of victims, members of Congress, track worker unions, and various companies who support railway safety. We are enjoying warm reception at the local, state, and federal levels, and we welcome all interested parties to join us. I have distributed copies of our brochure, which highlights our initiatives for keeping track workers safe. I first presented this publication to members of Congress at Railway Day on Capitol Hill in February with favorable reception. The brochure highlights a few of the National Transportation Safety Board's key recommendations. First, Rule 801. Review Rules and Procedures Handbook and revise as necessary to create additional layers of protection for wayside workers. And second, Rule 804. Promptly implement secondary warning technology that will automatically alert wayside workers of approaching trains and will automatically alert train operators when approaching areas with workers on or near the tracks. In 2007, following the deaths of track workers Franklin and Boggs of New York City, the New York City Transit had promised the implementation of secondary warning technology, which was successfully tested. I'd like to request an update on where the NYCT stands in its implementation of these technologies. Amtrak, Los Angeles, SEPTA, MTA Maryland, and several other agencies have already moved in this direction. Federal monies are already set aside for track worker safety and equipment. Please refer to the brochure which I've provided for each of you, Appendix 3.
Please conclude your remarks. We do have your full handout, and the board members will read that following the meeting.
Thank you. In conclusion, at an average of $4.2 million per fatality settlement, upstaters and downstaters alone we cannot afford to have the litigation. With a small investment of track worker safety, we'll all be more successful. Please join us in this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Matt Shotkin.
Good morning, Andrew, Jay, and Doug. Your ties are all very nice, and Andrew and my tie almost match. I'd like to welcome the president of New York City Transit, Tom Pendergrass, at the meeting. I just saw you sitting over there, Tom. No station agents in the booths, a big problem. Elimination of token booths in certain stations, a bigger problem. Fare hikes are a huge problem because of the fact that nobody is going to ride the subways and buses, commuters and businessmen alike, because it's crazy to have to pay what could be now $250 in order to ride on New York City Transit. It's a growing concern. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you, and that concludes today's public speaking session.
Doug, thank you, and thank you to our public speakers. Before we get into the agenda of this meeting, I just want to remind everyone on the board and the public that we'll be holding a special meeting on the 7th of October to deal with the proposed fare and toll increases and to vote on a final fare proposal. Every member of the board has received now full transcripts from all of the hearings and the written comments that have been submitted from members of the public. And we have this opportunity between now and the 7th to consider those comments in anticipation of the vote that will take place at that time. So that's not a matter of business for this meeting today. With that noted, may I ask for a vote, please, to approve the minutes of the July board meeting?
Motion made. Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We turn to the Committee on Finance. Mr. Saul.
Good morning. There are two action items. The first action item seeks authorization and approval of the necessary documentation to issue new money bonds, notes, or other obligations to provide net proceeds, exclusive of premiums, sufficient to fund up to $200 million of capital projects contained in the approved capital programs of the MTA Bridges and Tunnels. The second action item seeks approval of the qualification of a list of banks for credit and/or liquidity facilities. I move all the items.
Do you have a second? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
There are no procurements this month, but there are 14 real estate action items this month which are described in the board materials, and I move these action items.
In favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the finance report.
Thank you very much. The Committee on Transit. Doreen, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On behalf of Transit, I present the following for the Board's approval. There are 12 procurements totaling $3,209.2 million. There is one non-competitive in the amount of $3 million. The committee recommends it, and I move it.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
There are 6 competitive procurements in the amount of $3,186.2 million. And if you indulge me just for 1 second, I want to draw everyone's attention to a staff summary that's sitting at your places. In the amount of approximately $3.2 billion for medical health benefits programs, which cover approximately 150,000 transit employees, retirees, and dependents. The new medical health benefit contracts are for 3 years with an option to extend for 2. The staff summary has been amended from the one that we saw earlier this week to provide that future exercise of the option will be subject to separate board authorization. The medical health benefits procurement was reviewed by and has been recommended by both Transit and Finance. It is competitively conducted and projected to result in millions of dollars of savings for the agency. It comes on the heels of the successful bidding of prescription drugs, which has saved us a very, very goodly sum, and another demonstration of how MTA agencies, by examining the way we do business, have been challenging standard operating procedure and creating significant savings as a result. And I want to single out for special mention Bob Bergen and his staff, who did a tremendous job in very, very short order in making this happen. The committee recommends all of these competitive procurements, and I move them.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
There are also 5 ratifications in the amount of $20 million. These are recommended, and I move them.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That's it for transit.
Thank you. And I would personally like to also underscore the point about the very hard work at Transit to do this and that Bob and his team led. Engaging in some of this, personally for myself, is engaging in a world unto itself, really. And I think people had to learn that world and come up and be able to do it. But it translates into dollars and cents in a way that we really do understand. And I think that was very important. And I think they did it in a way that also sought to protect the benefits for our employees. And I think walking that balance has been a hugely difficult task, and have done it exceptionally well. So thank you. The Committee on Bus Operations. Nancy, please.
Regarding the Bus Operations Committee meeting, there is one non-competitive procurement in the amount of $32,032. The committee recommended this procurement, and I move it.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And there was one competitive procurement in the amount of $352,980,000. Again, the committee recommended this procurement, and I move it.
In favor?
Aye.
And there
Opposed?
were, pardon me.
Thanks.
And there were no ratifications this month.
Thank you. I am told by my supercomputer program and Mr. Sidor that it's your turn, Mitch.
Good morning. The Commuter Rail Committee met tonight. Sorry. The Commuter Rail Committee met this week. There are 5 non-competitive procurements 4 for the Long Island Railroad, 1 for Metro North, and the total amount of $2.436 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
There are 4 competitive procurements, 3 for Metro North and 1 for MTA Capital Construction, and the total amount of $3.477 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And there are 2 ratifications, both for MTA Capital Construction Company, in the amount of $1.133 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Thank
And
you.
that concludes the report, Mr. Chairman.
And I might just...
He can give it.
I have to say, I had the pleasure to go down with some of the board members and Howard Perman and his staff to see a new train the other day, and I'll tell you that in an environment sometimes in which we deal with a lot of very difficult issues, actually being able to go down to Grand Central and actually see these trains in the flesh, so to speak, and being delivered, and the promise that really comes from them was just terrific. And I think it is just a reminder to us that at the same time that we've struggled through and are struggling through some very difficult financial issues, that we still have the opportunities through our service improvement and through our capital program to continue to offer better and better service to our customers. So it was, on a personal basis, it was a nice thing to be able to do the other day, and I enjoyed it. That was great, Howard. Thank you. To the Bridges and Tunnels.
Mr. Chairman, the Bridges and Tunnels Committee met this month and recommends the following. There is one action item. The committee recommends authorization to begin the process for amending Bridges and Tunnels rules and regulations for the imposition of an administrative fee in the amount of $50 for each toll collection violation. The committee recommends this item, and I move it.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
There are no non-competitive procurements. There are 3 competitive procurements in the amount of $1.540 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
There are no ratifications this month, and this concludes the Bridges and Tunnels Committee report.
And again, if I might just add one other note, I think, while we've just taken an administrative action in regard to bridges and tunnels, the reality is that we are well on the road in taking the steps toward all electronic tolling on the Henry Hudson Bridge, which Jimmy and his team have been moving toward, and I think it is a huge step for us. It would obviously doing it as a pilot, and we'll learn from that. But again, I think the ability to be able to continue to move these things forward despite the climate that we're in, and through the teams to be able to do that is really hugely important. And I think the fruits of that labor will become apparent, I think, next year to everyone. So some good stuff that actually is contained within this in a way that we shouldn't lose sight of as we do some of that. I think that concludes the regular business of the meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion made.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.